A grown man just asked to breastfeed his own newborn son. On camera, in the delivery room, while the baby was still counting his age in minutes. And no, that is not a headline from some parody page. That is not an exaggeration, and that is not me reaching for clicks. That is exactly what Blueface did the moment his son JR took his first breaths on this earth, and the internet is split clean in half tonight. Half of y'all are laughing. The other half are staring at their screens in dead silence, wondering how in the world we got here as a society. Stay with me, because what Blueface was caught saying to Nevaeh in the minutes after she pushed his child into the world is somehow worse than what made it into the clips. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why mothers everywhere are saying hospitals need to start vetting fathers at the maternity ward door. Because Blueface did not walk into that room to support the mother of his child. He walked in straight from a weekend with Chrisean rock. Straight from dropping her off at the airport. Straight from a baby shower that had already turned into a spectacle. And what he did next has nurses, mothers, and the entire internet asking the exact same question. What is actually wrong with Blueface? Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time pulling up on me, let me tell you how it works around here. I don't play favorites, I don't protect faves, and I definitely don't tiptoe. If I say something about somebody you love, and it stings a little, the exit is exactly where you found it. You don't have to announce your departure, baby. I'll survive. And I promise, so will you. Now, today we have got Blueface, Nevaeh, and baby JR, and before anything else leaves my mouth, congratulations to Nevaeh on a safe, healthy delivery. That part matters. That part comes first. Because everything else we're about to discuss happened in the shadow of what should have been the most beautiful, protected, sacred day of this woman's entire life. Instead, it turned into content. It turned into chaos. And it turned into one of the strangest displays I have ever seen from a brand new father. And y'all know good, and well I have seen some things on this app. Here's the roadmap. We're going to walk through the clips together, a little bit from right before JR arrived, some from right after, and then we are getting all the way into Blueface behavior, because baby, that child had not been on this planet a full hour before his father started moving weird. And I need y'all to hear me when I say this. I did not include everything. There were things Blueface said to Nevaeh in those clips that I made the executive decision to leave on the cutting room floor. There comes a point where I hit my personal limit with this man, and I've been honest with y'all about that before. When it comes to Blueface and Chrisean, there is a ceiling on how much foolishness I'm willing to platform on my channel, and Blueface broke clean through that ceiling this time. But don't you worry, what I did bring is more than enough to get us where we need to go. And one more thing before we press play. If you're new here and you're wondering why everybody in the comments already knows exactly how they feel about Blueface, it's because this story did not start in that delivery room. It started months ago. It started at a baby shower that went so far left that people are still picking the pieces up off the floor. It started with a man bouncing between two women, two households, two whole realities, and filming every second of it for the internet. So when I tell you the delivery room was just the latest chapter and not the first page, I need you to hold on to that. Because context is everything, and by the time we're done today, you're going to have all of it. Let's get into it. So the clips open right before JR makes his grand entrance. It's the delivery room. It's family everywhere. And listen, the energy in this first part is actually beautiful. I want to give it its flowers before we go anywhere else, because it matters. You've got grandmothers in the room. You've got women holding Nevaeh down, talking her through every contraction, fixing baby hairs, wiping sweat, making jokes to keep the room light. At one point there's this whole exchange about who gets to be called what, grandma, grandmama, both, and everybody's laughing, and the room feels like a room full of love. Somebody jokes about being the godmother. Somebody else is coaching Nevaeh through pushes, telling her don't push yet. Wait, breathe, okay now go. It's that real, raw, unpolished kind of family moment that you cannot script and you cannot fake. And then the baby starts crowning, and somebody says, and this is the line that told me everything about how this child was received. This is exactly who he looks like. Pure joy, pure recognition. That baby was loved before he ever took a breath, y'all. That is the part nobody wants to talk about, because it doesn't trend. The love doesn't trend. The mess trends. Remember that, because it's going to matter later. And through all of it, Nevaeh is cracking jokes. Mid-labor. Mid-contraction. This woman is literally telling folks don't get loud in here like her mama, laughing between pushes, keeping the whole room spirit up while her body is doing the hardest thing a human body can do. I need y'all to sit with that image. A woman in active labor, being the light in her own delivery room. Now, let me say this really quick, because this is where my jaw first hit the floor. Blueface was in that room. And I'm going to be completely honest with y'all the way I always am. I'm shocked Nevaeh let him in there. Me personally, it would have gone very differently. Extremely differently. Because let's review the timeline, shall we? This man had just spent an entire weekend with Chrisean. The whole weekend. Then there was the baby shower. And if you know, you know, and if you don't know, we have done a whole video on that situation. Go back and watch it. And then he drove from all of that, dropped Chrisean off at the airport, and walked straight into the maternity ward to watch his son be born. Straight. From the airport to the delivery room. Now whether that man showered or not, and honestly, at this point, who can even say? The point is he rolled up in there with the whole weekend still on him. The energy, the funk, the chaos of everything that had just happened with Chrisean, all of it walking through that hospital door right beside him. And Nevaeh, hours into labor, in the most physically vulnerable position a woman can possibly be in, still said yes. Still let him stand there. Still made space for him at the most sacred moment of her life. That is maturity on a level I personally do not possess. That is a woman making a decision for her child and not for her feelings. And I want to give Nevaeh her credit right now before we go any further, because what happened next proves she deserved better from the man standing beside her hospital bed. Because here is where everything shifts. And I need you to pay very close attention to how it shifts, because it happens in seconds. So JR is here. He's out. He's crying. He's healthy. And thank God for that. And Nevaeh starts doing what mothers do. She starts feeding her child. Normal. Beautiful. Biological. The most natural thing happening in that whole hospital. The family's watching. They're talking about his little ears, his hair, how he's latching. Somebody asks if he's actually drinking the milk. Nevaeh confirms that yes, he is. And Blueface says, let me try. Let me try. Y'all, when I tell you I had to rewind that clip 3 times, 3 separate times, because I was certain my ears had betrayed me. A grown man, standing over a hospital bed, watching a newborn baby, a baby that has been on this earth for what, 20 minutes? Breastfeed for the first time in his little life. And this man's first instinct, his actual spoken out loud instinct, is to ask for a turn. And nobody in that room blinked. That might be the part that bothers me the most. The room just kept rolling. Because that's what happens when you're around Blueface long enough. The absurd starts to register as normal, and the normal stops registering at all. But stay with me, because it does not stop at one comment. It escalates. And the way it escalates tells you this was not a slip of the tongue. This was a pattern. So Nevaeh starts explaining how she pushed herself into labor. And this is actually a wild little sidebar, so let me give it to you. She got her membranes swept. She drank 2 tablespoons of castor oil. She did the ball method for a solid 20 minutes. Raspberry leaf tea, a whole lot of it, her words. Pumped. Stimulated. The whole 9. And then, her words, she was sitting there eating Taco Bell at 10 o'clock at night when the contractions started coming back to back. That's how JR decided it was time. A Taco Bell delivery story, y'all. In 20 years, that child is going to hear that story at every birthday dinner, and I think that's adorable. But Blueface is not listening to any of that. Because while Nevaeh is mid-story, mid-feeding, mid-recovery, this man says, and I need you to hear the energy on this. My turn. I think he wants some. And when Nevaeh tells him no, the baby does not want him, Blueface doubles down. He says the baby wants some chocolate milk. That he's tired of that white milk. A grown man. Talking about chocolate milk. Coming from his chest. For a newborn. And Nevaeh, and I want to be fair here, because she handles all of this with more grace than it deserved, Nevaeh stays cool. She jokes it off. She keeps the peace. She tells him no, tells him the baby is eating, tells him the baby latched perfectly, and keeps it moving. But Blueface does not let it go. He comes back around again. It's my turn. She tells him no, it is not. He says, yes it is. Y'all, listen to how insistent he is. That's not a joke structure. A joke has a setup and a release. You say the wild thing, everybody laughs, you move on. This man circled back 3 separate times. 3. And every single time he came back, it was with more insistence, not less. I've watched comedians commit to bits with less dedication. And here's what I need somebody to explain to me in the comments. Because I have been turning it over in my head all night, and I cannot land anywhere comfortable. What is funny about it? Where's the joke? Because I've watched it from every angle. I've tried it as comedy. It doesn't land. I've tried it as shock value. Maybe, but shock value for who? The nurses? The grandmothers? The internet? I've tried it as a bit for the camera, and even that falls apart, because the camera doesn't change what it is. What it is, at its core, is a grown man trying to put his mouth-adjacent skin near a newborn's feeding routine for no reason that benefits the baby, benefits the mother, or benefits anyone except Blueface's bottomless appetite for attention. And let's talk about hygiene for 1 second, because nobody else wants to say this part out loud, but I will. This is a newborn child. Brand new immune system. Vulnerable to everything. Every nurse will tell you the first rule of a newborn is you protect that baby from germs. And here comes Blueface. fresh off a weekend running around with Chrisean, fresh off an airport run, fresh off who knows what, not washed, not sanitized, not thinking about anybody but himself, trying to get skin to skin in the weirdest possible way within the first hours of that baby's life. Even if you strip away every other layer of weird, and there are layers, y'all, layers, the hygiene alone makes this a no. A hard no. A no in every hospital in America. And yet, it gets stranger. Because Blueface doesn't just ask. He builds a whole narrative around it. In the very next stretch of clips, he announces, out loud, on camera, in front of the family, that he and the baby need to bond. Skin to skin, he says. And then he says, and I could not make this up if I tried. I got some tea for him. Somebody in the room asks the only reasonable question. You got some what? And Blueface, dead serious, clarifies the vision. Nevaeh's got milk, and he's got tea. Sweet tea, he says. I got tea in my nips. Tea. In his nips. For the baby. The room responds exactly how a room should respond. Somebody hits him with, you just got skin, sweetheart. Skin. And for a second, you think maybe the reality check landed. But y'all know Blueface by now. Reality checks bounce off this man like rain off a windshield. Moments later, he's posing for a picture, talking about, finally, she gives me a chance, mugging for the camera while Nevaeh is literally trying to feed her son in peace. And this is the thing about Blueface that I need y'all to understand deep in your bones. Every room he enters becomes his set. Every moment becomes his scene. Every person, including a woman who gave birth hours ago, including a baby who cannot yet hold up his own head, becomes a prop in the Blueface show. There is no moment too sacred, no room too small, no occasion too tender for him to make it about himself. Now, in the interest of fairness, and y'all know I try to be fair even when it pains me, there was one stretch of these clips where Blueface briefly behaved like a human being. It's the wheelchair moment. Nevaeh needs to be moved, and there's a little back and forth about who's pushing her, and Blueface actually steps up. He's taking over, he says. He pushes her. He handles it. And for about 90 seconds, you catch a glimpse of the man he could be if he ever decided to be him. The father who shows up, the partner who carries the weight, the adult in the room. Somebody jokes about pushing the baby around in a cart. The room laughs. And for one fleeting stretch, it almost feels like a normal family having a normal post-birth moment. I want to be honest about that, because if I only show you the worst of him, I'm doing the same thing the blogs do, and I refuse to move like that. But here's why that moment can't save him, and I need you to track this logic with me. The wheelchair moment proves he knows how to act right. He knows. The capacity is in there. Which means every weird comment, every my turn, every tea in my nips, those weren't ignorance. Those were choices. You don't get credit for acting human for 90 seconds when you spent the rest of the visit auditioning for the world's strangest father. The bar is on the floor, and this man keeps bringing a shovel. Because right on the other side of that decent moment, we're right back to it. There's a whole exchange over a robe. The baby had been resting on Blueface's robe, and when it's time to settle JR down, Blueface keeps circling back to it. My robe. Get the robe. He likes my robe. And look, on its face that's harmless. Cute, even. But watch how it functions. Every beat of that room has to orbit him. The baby's comfort gets narrated through his belongings. The baby's peace gets discussed in terms of him. Even the tenderness has to have his name stitched into it. And then comes the moment that actually stopped me cold. Cold, y'all. Nevaeh. And remember, this woman is hours removed from delivery, sitting in a hospital bed, holding her newborn. Nevaeh says her baby deserves his peace right now. After everything. He's chilling. And Blueface responds. He says the baby is going to keep chilling regardless, and then tells this woman, the woman who just birthed his son, don't project yourself on my son. Don't project yourself on my son. She carried that baby. She labored that baby. She pushed that baby into the world while cracking jokes to keep everyone else comfortable. And within hours, Blueface is standing in her hospital room policing how she mothers, accusing her of projecting and staking his claim. He's my baby too. He's my baby too. He says it twice, y'all. Like a man marking territory. And when she holds her ground, because she does, quietly, calmly, his answer is a dismissive little, okay, whatever. And then, as if all of that wasn't enough for one hospital visit, Blueface looks at this brand new baby and declares that there will be no mama's boys here. That the baby won't be crying to his mama. 5 minutes, he says, then he's taking him back. The baby was not 5 hours old. And Blueface was already laying out his whole philosophy of how that child is allowed to bond with his own mother. In her hospital room. In her bed. Over her baby. Tell me again how the internet looked at all of this and decided Nevaeh was the one to watch. Now I have to pivot for a moment, Because while Blueface was performing inside that hospital room, something arguably uglier was happening outside of it. Online, in the comment sections, and yes, on other people's channels. The second those clips hit the internet, a certain corner of the web went into a frenzy, and not over Blueface. Over the baby. Over Nevaeh. And I need to talk about it directly, because it is one of the most disturbing things I have watched this community do, and I have watched this community do a lot. Within hours, and I mean hours, because JR had not even been alive a full 24. People were diagnosing him. Strangers. On the internet. Zooming into screenshots of a newborn and declaring that something must be wrong with him. His cry, they said. His coloring. His tint. One comment I saw with my own two eyes claimed the baby's cries sounded like some kind of pre-existing condition, as if any of them have a medical degree, as if a baby crying is anything other than the most normal sound on earth. Let me educate the room for free, since apparently it's needed. Newborns cry. It is the one thing they are professionally certified to do. And newborns, especially minutes-old newborns, can have a purplish tint to their skin. It is called acrocyanosis. It is breathtakingly common, and it fades. Every nurse in that hospital knew that. That baby was surrounded by medical professionals from the moment he arrived. But the internet, in its infinite arrogance, looked at a minutes-old child and decided they could see something the entire maternity ward missed. And why? Let's be honest about why. Because they don't like who his father is. Because they don't like the storyline. Because some of them have picked a side in the Blueface and Chrisean saga, and a newborn baby got drafted into a war he didn't start and cannot fight. That baby is not a subplot. He is a person who, I will remind you, has been a person for less time than a leftovers container lasts in my refrigerator. And Nevaeh caught it too. The same crowd swearing Blueface behavior was harmless comedy turned around and predicted she would be a controlling mother. She's going to gatekeep the baby, they said. She's going to be difficult, they said. To which I say, as she should, and also, did y'all watch the same clips I did? The woman let a man who had just spent the weekend with Chrisean walk straight into her delivery room. That is the opposite of controlling. That is a woman bending so far over backwards for co-parenting peace that her spine is basically decorative. If Nevaeh draws one boundary going forward, one, she has earned it with interest. But here's the part that took this from distasteful to depraved. It wasn't just random commenters. There were actual content creators, people with platforms, people who know better, people whose whole paycheck depends on this soap opera never ending, who started generating AI images of Nevaeh and her newborn. AI images of a real baby. Then they built little breakdown videos around those fake images, analyzing the child's features, his complexion, speculating about his health, ranking who he looks like, manufacturing content off a newborn's face. And I will say what I said before and mean it twice as hard. If you are on anybody's payroll, and some of y'all are, don't act brand new, and your assignment was to tear down a postpartum woman and her day-old son, you are not a commentator. You are a contractor for cruelty. There is no dollar amount that makes that clean. I keep thinking about the contrast. On one side, a hospital room full of grandmothers laughing over baby hairs and arguing about who gets called grandma. On the other side, strangers photoshopping diagnoses onto an infant for views. One of those is a family. The other one is a business model. And if your business model requires a newborn to be sick or ugly or suspicious or scandalous in order for you to eat, baby, you are not in the content game. You are in the vulture game, and the carcass you're circling is a child. Some of these people need serious reflection. Genuinely. And I don't say that as a punchline. Now let's widen the lens, because what happened in that delivery room was not an isolated event. It was the latest scene in a show that has been running for years, and the earlier episodes matter. Think about the full picture for a second. On one side of this story, you have Nevaeh, a woman who has been living in Blueface's house, navigating Blueface chaos, watching Blueface other relationship play out in public, and who still showed up to her own birth ready to share the moment with him. On the other side, you have Chrisean, and y'all know the history there. We have covered it until our fingers were tired. A relationship so turbulent it practically has its own weather system. And in the middle, conducting all of it like an orchestra, is the same man. Same playbook. New hospital. And here's a comparison I need somebody to sit with. When Chrisean was pregnant, and we all watched that too, we all saw the things she admitted to doing during that pregnancy. The drinking, the smoking, all of it playing out on camera while everybody held their breath for that baby. Even then, even with all of that, I do not remember the internet lining up to autopsy her newborn the second he arrived. I remember concern. I remember worry. I do not remember this level of gleeful, zoomed-in, screenshot-level dissection of a minutes-old child. But Nevaeh, who did everything right, who had a safe and healthy delivery, whose baby latched perfectly and cried normally and was surrounded by nurses. Nevaeh gets the forensic treatment. Make it make sense. You can't. Because it was never about the babies. It was about which mother the internet decided to root against. That's the part of this saga that should genuinely disturb you. Not the father being the father. At this point, that's just gravity. It's the machinery around him. The fan pages. The payroll pages. The comment sections that have turned a birth into a battleground. He doesn't even have to throw the stone himself anymore. He just has to exist in the middle of two women and let the internet do the stoning for him. And while we're being honest about the machinery, let's be honest about this too. He knows exactly what he's doing on camera. This is a man who has turned his entire personal life into a franchise. Every relationship, every argument, every reconciliation, every airport drop-off, monetized. So when he stands in a delivery room and says, "My turn," 3 times, when he talks about tea in his chest, when he declares a 5-hour-old baby will not be a mama's boy, understand that none of that is accidental. This man has been performing for the internet so long that I genuinely do not think he can tell the difference between a moment and a scene anymore. The hospital room had a camera in it, and where there's a camera, there's an audience, and where there's an audience, he has never once in his public life chosen the quiet, decent, off-camera option. Not once. Show me the counterexample. I'll wait. And the scary part of that? If this is how he performs when the camera is on, in a hospital, surrounded by family, with nurses down the hall, what does the version look like with no camera at all? That's not an accusation. That's a question every person in that baby's life should be asking themselves tonight. Because the internet will move on from this story by next week. The blogs will find new mess. But JR is going to grow up with every single one of these clips waiting for him. And Nevaeh is going to be making decisions about custody and co-parenting with a man who treated her delivery room like an open mic. Let's also talk about the fear that was sitting underneath this whole day, because Nevaeh's family understood it even if Blueface never will. More than a few of us watching these clips had the same thought. He had the hospital address. He had just come from Chrisean. And if you followed this saga for longer than 5 minutes, you know that Chrisean pops up somewhere uninvited is not a hypothetical. It's practically a scheduling tradition. There were people half expecting a hallway appearance the entire time. Imagine that being a real, rational fear on the day you give birth. Imagine dilating while wondering if your baby father's on-again girlfriend is about to materialize at the nurse's station. Nevaeh carried that possibility into labor and still kept the room joyful. Still let him in. Still shared her moment. The strength on display in that delivery room belonged to the women. All of it. The grandmothers, the godmother, the mama. Every ounce of it. Meanwhile, what was the internet laughing about? He's so sassy. He wants to be the baby mama. Huh. Y'all, I need us to grow up as a viewing audience. When a man inserts himself into a newborn's feeding, jokes about what's in his chest, polices the mother's bonding, and declares custody of the baby's emotions before the umbilical cord paperwork is dry, and your read on the situation is that he's sassy, you are not watching with your eyes open. You've been trained by years of this man's content to grade him on a curve, so curved it's a circle. The bar isn't low for Blueface. The bar is subterranean. They had to run plumbing around it. Now, let's deal with the defense that always shows up right on schedule, because I can already see the comments loading up. It was a joke. He's always like that. Why are you taking it so seriously? Nevaeh was laughing, so why aren't you? Let me take those one at a time, because each one collapses under about 2 seconds of pressure. It was a joke. A joke between whom, exactly? Because the baby wasn't laughing. The mother was managing him. The family was humoring him. Jokes have consent baked in. Everybody's in on it. What he does isn't joking, it's testing. He floats something outrageous, watches the room, and if the room absorbs it, the line moves. Next time it goes further. That's not humor, y'all. That's a man mapping the perimeter of what he's allowed to get away with. And in that delivery room, the perimeter held, barely, because Nevaeh kept redirecting him. Go back and watch. Every single escalation dies at her boundary. No, it's not your turn. No, he's eating. Don't project yourself on my son. She said that. The adult in that room was the woman who had just finished labor. He's always like that. Correct, and that's the problem, not the defense. When someone's entire defense is that they consistently behave the same inexcusable way, you have not defended them. You have established a pattern. That's how evidence works. Nevaeh was laughing. Y'all, women in vulnerable rooms laugh to keep rooms safe. Every woman watching this knows exactly what that laugh was. That was the laugh of a woman hours out of labor, with family present and cameras rolling, choosing peace over a scene. That laugh was a strategy, not a review. Do not let a postpartum woman's grace get used as a permission slip for a grown man's behavior. Her composure was a gift she gave that room. It was not an endorsement of anything that happened inside it. And one more, my least favorite. At least he showed up. I need y'all to hear how tragic that sentence is. At least he showed up. The baseline expectation for fatherhood in this corner of the internet has eroded so badly that physical presence, showing up, on camera, straight from another woman's airport drop-off, now counts as virtue. He showed up. That's the floor. That's the absolute ground level minimum. You don't get a parade for walking through a door, especially when you spent the whole visit making the room about yourself. Nevaeh showed up too. She showed up and did the showing up for 9 months, and then did it again for hours of labor, and then did it again while he auditioned for a turn at her chest. Nobody's giving her a trophy for attendance, and she did all the work. The bar is not just low for him anymore. The bar is a rumor at this point. People speak of it like a folk tale. And every time the internet laughs along, the bar sinks another inch, and the person who pays for that settled ground is not him. It's a little boy named JR who is going to grow up and one day watch all of this. So where does this leave everybody? Let's take stock, because the dust is still settling and the questions are piling up faster than the answers. JR is homebound, healthy, and loved. That is the headline that matters, and I refuse to let it get buried under the circus. Say it with me one more time. Congratulations to Nevaeh. Safe delivery, healthy baby, and a mama who already proved, on day one, in real time, on camera, that she can hold a boundary, hold a room, and hold her son all at the same time. That little boy won the only lottery that matters, and it's the one with her name on it. Nevaeh now has decisions to make, and I do not envy a single one of them. She is co-parenting with a man who turned her delivery room into content, who has one foot permanently planted in another relationship, and whose every tender moment arrives with a camera attached. The fact that she let him in that room tells me she wants her son to have a father. The clips tell me she's going to spend the next 18 years managing what that actually looks like. Those are not the same thing, and deep down, after today, I think she knows it. And the man himself? He will do what he always does, laugh it off, call it content, and wait for the internet's attention span to rescue him. It always has before. But here's what I'd say to him if he ever actually listened to anyone. The clips don't expire, brother. The internet forgets, but the footage doesn't. One day JR is going to be old enough to type his own name into a search bar, and everything, the T comments, the my turn, the don't project yourself on my son, is going to be sitting right there, waiting, in high definition. You cannot perform your way out of a record that permanent. At some point the show ends, and the fatherhood doesn't, and no amount of viewers is going to raise that child for you. As for the vultures, the AI image pages, the newborn diagnosticians, the payroll commentators, y'all already know how I feel, and I meant every syllable. But I'll add this. The algorithm you're feeding does not love you back. Today it's Nevaeh's baby. Tomorrow the machine needs a new target, and this community has never once run out of targets. If your channel cannot survive without a newborn in the crosshairs, the problem was never the news cycle. The problem is the business model, and eventually, business models like that come due. And to the mamas watching, the ones who sent me these clips, the ones filling my comments with their own delivery room stories, I see you, and this video is for you. Half of y'all have lived some version of this. The man who treated your most vulnerable day like his stage, the family members who laughed it off, the strangers who had opinions about your baby before your milk even came in. You are the reason I don't soften these videos. Because somebody has to say out loud what that room full of laughter was politely covering up. And because this story is still moving as we speak, let me leave you with the questions I'll be watching in the days ahead. Because trust me, this is not the last video we make about this. 1. Does Chrisean respond? Because history says silence is not her ministry, and a baby just entered the group chat of the most turbulent relationship on the internet. If she speaks, we will be here. 2. Does the family draw a harder line for the next milestone? The delivery room door was open this time. The next first holiday, first birthday, first anything, is going to come with a guest list decision. And after these clips, I would not blame a single person for guarding that door like it owes them money. 3. Does the internet ever apologize to this baby? Because it owes him one already, and he can't even read yet. Now, before we close the book on this one, I want to circle back to where we started, because I told you at the top that what Blueface was caught saying to Nevaeh was somehow worse than what made the clips, and I want to land on why I chose not to air all of it. It's not to protect him. He's got a whole internet for that. It's because there is a difference between commentary and contamination. Some things, once you platform them, don't expose the person who said them half as much as they diminish the person who repeats them. My threshold exists, so this channel never becomes the thing it covers. Y'all have been with me long enough to know that's the line. It's why you're still here. So here's what it all boils down to. A woman gave birth to a beautiful, healthy boy. Her room was full of love, grandmothers arguing over who gets called grandma, baby hairs getting laid, jokes flying between contractions, Taco Bell getting the assist of a lifetime. And into that room walked a man who had spent the weekend elsewhere, who asked to breastfeed his minutes-old son 3 separate times, who announced he had tea in his chest, who told the baby's mother not to project onto her own child, who declared a 5-hour-old would not be a mama's boy, and who managed, somehow, to make one of the purest days in a family's life orbit around him. That's the story. Not the AI pictures. Not the complexion detectives. Not the cry analysts. The story is that Nevaeh did everything right. JR is here and healthy, and the internet showed us, again, exactly who it is. Now I want to hear from y'all, and don't just drive by. Park in these comments. Was Blueface joking? Or was that room watching something it should have stopped? Would you have let him in that delivery room after the airport run? Yes or no? And be honest, if your baby father said my turn while you were feeding your newborn, what's your first move? Best answer in the comments gets pinned, and y'all already know I read every single one. If this is your first time here and you made it all the way to the end, that tells me everything about you. Hit that subscribe and turn the notification bell all the way on, because the moment Chrisean so much as breathes in the direction of this story, I'm going live with the breakdown. And if you've been rocking with me, you already know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, and hype me up in those comments, because y'all are the engine of this whole operation. And listen, if you want the full backstory on how we even got to this delivery room, the baby shower video is sitting on your screen right now. That one explains everything about the energy Blueface carried into that hospital. And trust me, once you see it, nothing in today's clips will surprise you. This is your girl, and I will see y'all on the next one. Stay loud, stay loving, and stay away from weirdos in the maternity ward. Bye.